Welcome to Session Sunday. Hi guys, it's Jack Edwards, and in this week's video we're going to be focusing on receiving in midfield to attack. But before we get into this week's video, make sure to leave us a like and subscribe, and if you missed last week's video, click on the link above. Okay, so moving into the first part of this week's session, we're going to be moving into the first of our two patterns that we're going to be looking at. So in today's session, we're going to do two patterns, okay, and then we're going to focus on a small sided game afterwards, so how we can bring those patterns into a game scenario. So the first pattern is going to be focusing on playing out from the back into midfield, and the second one's going to be in terms of stretching the pitch to play across, to then play forward. But before we get into it, let's have a look at how many players we got this week and the equipment that we're using. Okay, so in terms of players for this week, we have a total of 16 players, 14 outfield players, plus 2 goalkeepers. Okay, we can adapt that for more and less players. So you're starting off with goalkeepers. If you don't have 2 goalkeepers, it's okay if you have 1. Again, we speak about quite a lot about coach or a volunteer or a parent going in goal. Or with it only being a pattern, you can look to put areas in the goal for the players to aim at, because with the finish, we're looking for it to be quite an instinctive finish. In terms of players, if you have more players, that's fine. You can just add players into certain areas in here, so a little bit more rest time, because we are going to be going quite quickly. As well, you can even try and put, so we have midfielders in here, have an extra striker or an extra option out wide, however you like to do it. But with the 7 players, you can kind of add to look to have 2 players on a couple of different cones as well, which isn't too bad. So the focus is playing into midfield from the back, okay, and then working it across to then play forward. So in terms of the equipment, we're going to be using balls, bibs and cones. If you do have mannequins or poles, that's a perfect alternative to use instead of cones as well, for the players to treat as a defender for the movement to move across. So how this pattern's going to work, okay, so we're splitting the group into 2 teams of 7. The start point here where the midfielders are is going to have the 2 players, okay, and we're looking to work the ball on one side of the pitch, then work it across and play forward, okay. So in terms of the setup, okay, it all depends on what age group you work with, okay, and how much space that you actually have, but if we can kind of get around 60 yards of depth, okay, so from like the goal line here into the player in here, you're looking at around about 20 yards each side, and then 15 to 20 yards centrally. You can do this a little bit more if you wanted to. And then the gap between the players in here, you're looking about 5-10 yards each time. The centre-backs are obviously going to be quite deep, so around the 5 and 6 yard box. And the wide players, you're looking about 25 to 30 yards from goal. So, like I say, it depends on the players that you're working with, but you don't want to pigeonhole the players just to staying on that cone. That's just an area for them to kind of work off, okay? So it's going to start with the midfielder receiving the ball each side. So both sides are going at the same time. So they're going the same way, so you can adapt it and go the opposite side after a while. The player's going to open out, okay, or they can try and move to play first time to play to the centre-back. So it's important that the players do follow the movements as well to ensure that there's space in this midfield area. So as soon as this player plays to the centre-back, okay, they're making the way across into here. This player will come close to the pole or the cone. Centre-back receives it, opens out and plays the full-back, okay. They will then follow their pass. As the full-back receives the ball, we're then looking for this midfielder to get into a position to receive it, okay. So they start on this side, so they can either come around the cone this side or around this side. So looking to, as the full-back opens out or takes the ball inside, they're looking to get space to receive it. Receive it on that back foot, okay? Because then what that enables us to do is open out and play across the pitch, okay? Full-back will then move inside. What we're then looking for then is this player to do the same. So get into a position to receive on that back foot, okay? It enables us to play forward quickly, okay? This player moves across into here. Obviously, he's going to be a little more timed. And then what we're looking for is this player to open out and play forward. Okay, so this player is going to be starting in around this area. So we're going to play that ball through the defence. Okay, so coming off the shoulder to receive the ball, touch and finish. If you wanted to, this player could start centrally. Okay, and then they can move out to the side, or they can do a double movement where they come out and then in to receive it and score. So you don't have to, like I say, put the player in this area, but we're just focusing on receiving on that back foot and then playing into space for the player to go and score. That player will then move up to be the person who's going to finish, and they will be moved to the other queue. Okay, so once they've scored here, they move across to the other team's queue. Okay, so you don't have to put the players in bibs, but sometimes it can be a little bit easier. But obviously, if the players are going to be mixing around, okay, and changing places, you might not want to put them in bibs because it might confuse them. So again, we'll go through it from the opposite side. So then this player here in the green, receive the ball, open out, place it to the centre back. So it's those receiving skills, okay, to make sure that we can receive the ball and play where we want to, but also having different options in the game. So when we receive on the back foot here, might be able to play to the full back, open out and play to the opposite side, open out and take it forward. So we're not just putting ourselves, making one decision. This player moves to there, full back then looks to receive the ball, okay. This green player in here will be ready, this green player in here will be ready to receive it. We want them to open out in here. We're looking to then bang, play across, and then play forward. Okay, so when this player receives the ball here, can they look to open out? Can they play through for this player to move on to and score? So the players are just moving up one part each time. Okay, so it's quite simple once the players get used to it, but you might want to walk through it, do a few demonstrations before it actually starts. We will now move into our first animation before moving on to part 2 of this week's session. Now moving into part 2 of this week's session, we're now moving into our second pattern. This time we're focusing on stretching the pitch, okay, to play inside. So we're going to be focusing on clipping out to the fullback, okay, playing through midfield across, and then getting the ball into the forwards to score, okay. So it's kind of like breaking down a defence which is obviously sitting back. We're trying to move that ball quickly to create gaps to play through. So it's going to switch each time. So the players are going to be staying in the same positions. You can move them around if you want to eventually. So you want to try and get your midfielders, your fullbacks into these areas and your forwards up there, or attack midfielders. So both sides will work off the same way. So this keeper might play to this left back, this keeper will play to this left back. So then the next time they'll clip to the right back. So how the pattern's going to work is going to be that we're going to be moving across to play forward. But in terms of the setup, again, it depends on age group, how much space you've got again. So you're trying to maximise it. So from the goal line here to where these three players are, so you hold midfield and your strikers, you're looking around 20 yards, between 20 and 25. And then between these two players here, so the gap between midfielders and there, you're looking about 10 yards each side. So you're talking, again, depending on how much space that you have, between 20 and 30 each side. So you're looking around 50 to 60, and then a middle area, again, how much space you've got. You might be able to have an extra 15, 20 yards. Okay, if you've got to working on a big grass pitch, perfect. If you're working on Astro, you might be able to go across the pitch instead of going, normal ways. You might be able to turn it and go horizontally instead of going vertically. So we try and just maximise the space that you've got, okay? Just so in this middle area here, okay, there's a little bit of space for players to move, okay? And also representing, like, kind of playing through the opposition as well. But if you don't have that space centrally, it's okay. You will look and focusing more on the space in these areas here. So ball starts with the keeper. It's going to get clipped to the fullback. Okay, so we want the players like moving. So we kind of want this player then to have a movement as if they're coming towards the ball, okay? But they're not actually going to receive it. They're just going to be pretending if they're bringing a man there. Then what we're looking for, okay, is then the hold midfielder to get on the ball. So it gets played into the hold midfielder. Hold midfielder is going to be as if they're getting pressured. Okay, so trying to they're not actually getting pressured, but thinking that this player's there. So then this player, the reason they're coming towards the ball here when the fullback's got it, is so that the player can then set them either in here, okay, or in here. So then as they receive that ball, they're going to switch it to this hold midfield, this central midfielder. So we're focusing on the movement in the pivot here, in the single pivot. So this gets switched across. Okay, so we're moving that ball from midfield quickly. This gets switched across. So again, we're focusing on that movement. So as this player sets the ball back, we're looking them to spin out, because then that means that this fullback can move in. Okay, so we play just in front for a touch. And then what we're looking to do is play into the front too. So this is why we're saying about having a bit of space in here, so the player can touch inside and maybe play into this player, who might then combine with the forward. So, this hold midfielder isn't going to be tackling, but it's something for the players to move around. Or this player might open out and play the line. Okay, first take a touch and play. This player might then receive it in the line, cut it back for a finish. Okay, or there's a bit of, intricate play. Okay, a bit of creativity between these forward two to score. So then if you do have more players, you can even add in defenders and have a separate area for these to receive the ball in a box. Okay, you could create a box here with this player just in front with a defender. It could be a 2v1 scenario, so the ball gets played into the box and you've just got to try and score. So it's unopposed there, but you could do it in terms of like the hold midfielder can even go back in if you wanted to as well as a progression. So there's more of an opposed instead of unopposed scenario to score. But once that fullback gets the ball, it's either come inside and play or take the line and play. So playing through that opposition quickly, so playing in behind. And then the next time, it'll go from the right-hand side. Okay, so it's the same pattern, just moving the opposite way. So it'll get clipped to the right back. Okay, this midfielder comes in as if he's going to receive it. No, gets set in to the whole midfielder. Hold midfielder sets it. Okay, ball gets played across. Okay, this player sets it back there, spins out into space. Okay, so he might go there and then spins out into space there to create the space for the fullback to get it. Played into the feet, okay, or just in front. Touching there, and then it could be that this player spins out, this player comes in, it's a little pass round the corner, gets touched in front, and then we look to score. So again, when it gets into this area here, we're looking for a bit more improvisation and creativity. When the ball's in these areas here, we're looking to move that ball quickly across the pitch, okay? So receiving in the midfield, having that confidence to move the ball quickly, and then that ability to, again, open the play and switch it out quickly by playing 1- and 2-touch football. We will now move into our second animation before moving on to the final part of this week's session. Okay, now moving into the final part of this week's session. We're now moving into a small side of the game, which is going to be focusing on using the patterns, okay, trying to use them in a game now, okay, in a game scenario. So we're going to be focusing on playing out from the back, stretching the pitch, looking to play through, and then obviously trying to score. In terms of the setup, okay, in terms of depth, we're going to go with 50 yards. Okay, you can increase that again with more players. Start off with 50. If it comes a little bit too tight, okay, you can increase that to 60. Or again, if you've got more players anyway, you'd have more depth anyway if you can. In terms of width, okay, we're going to go 20 yards centrally, and then we're going to go 10 yards in each wide zone. And then you're looking to get about 6 to 7 or 8 yards in these areas here. So you're looking around about 55 yards in terms of width. Again, if you don't have that, it's okay. You might not have the half space, you might just have central area and then a wider area. Okay, so we're trying to do it into the lanes. So you've got central area, half space and wide areas. So we're looking to occupy those areas all the time. So it can be in possession of central players, 2 central midfielders come in there. It could be that 2 wider forwards come in there and then the central players look to manoeuvre and get on the ball. And then we get runs in behind. So we're focusing on attacking that space. So using these central areas in the half space as where we, attack the goal, because this is where the goal is. But having that importance with the wide players as well to stretch the pitch and allow that recycled possession. Again, so we haven't got any centre backs when we're in possession, okay, and we haven't really got any forwards. So we're trying to use these players as wingers, or like I say, you can use maybe one as a striker in possession and one of the midfielders moves out and we kind of have 2 players in there. So rotation of the movements. So we can either play out via the fullbacks or we can play out centrally. So let's say we play out centrally. So again, it's moving that ball quickly, and then we can have runners in the half space. We can have players coming towards the ball. That rotation, so players are going to slide over. The opposition, the green team without the ball, are going to set up to be compact. Could be in the same formation, but they're obviously looking to man mark in these central areas. So again, that single pivot wants to position themselves in a position where they're always looking to receive the ball. So being confident to receive it. The other 2 players and trying to provide an option. And then the more forward players, okay, they're trying to occupy that half space, but also try and run in behind. So again, get played centrally, get played in. So we're focusing on that quick movement of the ball, okay? Can we get players in support? Can we get players moving in behind? Okay, because in order to break down the opposition, we've got to move that ball quickly. Okay, so through that midfield. So that midfield is important because we're looking at our technical players, our players who can break down the opposition. So once we break a line of pressure, can we go and attack quickly in the goal and then score? So that's why we're saying about giving each other space, giving the players space to go and attack, not making it too tight in there. Again, we can look to play to the fullbacks. So when we're setting up, okay, we're trying to make that pitch, okay, quite wide, okay, but it's having that depth as well, and also the rotation of the movement. So if these players are trying to lock onto these players in here, switch it out to the fullbacks, okay. We might get players spinning out into space, players being able to come to the ball, movement across midfield, but also that option to play back as well. So being able to recycle by stretching the pitch. Okay, obviously when the ball's on the opposite side, we get players coming across, ball gets played in centrally, gets played across. Again, can we get runs in behind? Midfielders making those runs, so being confident to receive in between the lines. We could play through, get runners on the opposite side of the pitch, ball gets played in, and then we can look to score. If the Greens win the ball, it's the same for them as well. They're looking to play and score, okay, using the same principles as they've been doing as well. If the Greens score, they'll keep possession. So again, it's focusing on that midfield, okay. So then the Blues might set off with, the back four, okay. So players just dropping in into these positions. Greens get themselves, high and wide, one player in here. Your midfielders, your strikers, your forward players, sorry. The ball gets played midfield, we open out, can we play centrally again, then can we play wide? Players moving in and out of positions to receive it, moving that ball quickly, being confident on the ball, getting the ball across the pitch, or stretching it, and then finally finding that space. So it's being patient in possession, okay, and having that composure, but putting ourselves in areas to receive it, the ability to open out, the execution of our passes, time of our movements, our body shape when we receive the ball, positivity to go forward, positivity to switch the play, and like I say, that patience, and then finally having that intent to go and attack the goal once that space opens up. We will now move into our final animation before concluding this week's session. Thanks for watching this week's video. Don't forget to head over to our website where you can sign up to view all of our exclusive content. And we'll see you next week for another Session Sunday.